So there's a lot of controversy right now around the NBA Jam cabinet from Arcade1up. Welcome back to the channel. This is David from Unqualified Critics, and I'm just going to give you guys my take on NBA Jam as it stands. And I say as it stands because this is a Wi-Fi enabled product and they are promising firmware updates. So we should see improvements over time, but let's talk about where we're at today. Now I'm waiting on my pre-order still. I've not received it. I wish I had, but that's not the case. But there are videos out there from folks who are talking about their NBA jams. We've seen up close and personal how it works. We have really all the information is already out on the cabinet. We know what the deck looks like with the light up. We know the current roster. We know basically how online gameplay works. So I'm not going to talk a ton about online gameplay because that's something where I do believe it's too early to judge. It's going to take time for the community to mature. As I mentioned, I pre-ordered my cabinet. I don't even have it yet, so I'm not part of that community yet. I'm sure there are a lot more people who will buy NBA Jam over the next 12 months than who have it now. So that community will grow. And I fully expect bugs, honestly, in their software because this is the first time they've done online play. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But there's one thing I will say about online because I think we need to get the word out on this. I was reading on one of I think it was the official Facebook group for Arcade1up. I think that's where I saw this. I'm reading that quitting a match, so like, let's say you're playing with somebody online and you're losing. If you quit, you're not going to record the loss on your record. And that apparently is resulting in a lot of people quitting early. Now, this should be an easy fix. If you leave a match early, you get an L. Other online games have done this before. It's not a novel idea. Arcade1up, get that fixed, please. I know there will be some legitimate disconnects that get caught up in this, myself included. I don't know why my Wi-Fi goes out occasionally for a split second, but it does. But here's the thing. People commonly leaving matches early absolutely breaks online play, so that just has to be stopped. And if it catches me occasionally with my internet going out and I get a loss, so be it. There are a couple other big topics here aside from online that we need to look at. The player roster and the light up deck. So first, let's tackle the roster. To be honest, I think the community is big time overreacting to these roster limitations. Arcade1up has said repeatedly that the roster will be limited based on their negotiations with individual players and their ability to get those rights. They took longer than they should have, for sure, to give us the published final roster, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that, and here's why. It's completely plausible that they were working up to the last minute to get rights from those players. I have heard there's a day one patch when you first assemble and go online with your NBA Jam. And I don't know if that day one patch includes more players or not, but it could. And the fact that it could gives them a reason to try to hustle and get those rights last minute. Now, should they have come out and said, hey guys, we know you want to hear about the roster. Here's what we have so far. Yeah, they probably should have. Should they have said, hey, behind the scenes we're working on this roster. We're not quite ready to share it yet. Yeah, they should have done all of that. And a lot of times they're too close to the vest with info like that, in my opinion. I'm sure they don't want to rock the boats with pre-orders and annoy people, but then it's just going to backfire. I've heard that some of the Mystic players are replaced with duplicates of existing players, which is goofy, but that's necessary for some of the teams who would be lacking and not enough player options. So I get the frustration. I just also am not sure what else, other than announce it a little better. I'm not sure what else they could have done. You have to remember, and many of you probably already know this, but back in the day, the 80s and 90s, when games were made, there wasn't really a sense of the future. What I mean by that is when you made a game, you didn't necessarily even save the code of the game. There are many examples where games were programmed, compiled, shipped, and the original code was just deleted because it was not imagined that they would need that code someday in the future to build off of for a remaster or a re-release. Because in the 90s, it was all about what was new. No one was really looking backward a whole lot. Now, games, in my opinion, gaming industry it's like the movie industry. It's getting really stale. So we're all looking backward, but people didn't anticipate that. And that also includes when you negotiate rights. Think about all the games over the years that came out with a great soundtrack, like Crazy Taxi, and then it's re-released later and you don't get that soundtrack. Well, when they negotiated the rights, they didn't negotiate for future re-releases ahead of time. It'd been awesome if they did, but people just didn't think that way. So all that said, I'm not sure what else Arcade1up could have done. I'm not going to blame them on this. But that said, as a consumer, you're within your rights. Decide if you want to buy this product now. If you pre-ordered it and got it before they announced it, that's too bad and shame on Arcade1up. But if you've not pre-ordered it or bought it yet, I'm going to put the roster up on the screen. This is official from Arcade1up, and decide if it's a deal breaker for you or not. For me, it is not. For you, it might be, and maybe you want to wait and see if they actually do bring out more players later and jump in at that time, and that's totally okay. So I'm defending Arcade1up on the roster. I think that outside of some messaging, I just do not blame them for the lack of some of the players. And also, too, let's remember they did get a lot of players, and the alternative would have been what? Just not releasing the game at all, and that's not the way to do it. Let's let people decide. I'm still buying my cabinet. I don't care, so I'm in that camp. But when it comes to the deck protector, I'm not going to defend them on this. I was skeptical from the start that the light up deck protector made any sense. It's not inspired by any real arcade product that I've ever seen. Certainly the original NBA Jam and Frogger and Pac-Man cabinets where they've done this, they didn't have light up decks. I mean, it just seems odd, and I question if it would be distracting for the same reason why I don't like light up buttons. Now, do some people like these things? Yeah. And for that reason, it should be an add-on accessory. But this is the creme de la creme, the $500 model. Does it make sense for that to be tied to a deck protector? It doesn't look very good. And here's the other problem with the deck protector that lights up. It's just an LED strip that shines through a thin sheet of plexiglass. That plexiglass wasn't engineered to diffuse the light. There was a community member who did this. It looks awesome. I'll put it up on the screen. It can be done. Arcade1up should have taken the time to do that. Now with the $500 package, beyond the LED light up control panel, you get a stool, an official stool branded for NBA Jam. I happen to like that stool, and that was the main reason why I jumped into the upgraded cabinet. But I don't really think it ought to be included with the upgraded cabinet. I like it and want the stool, but not everybody does. And how many stools do we all want? If you have 10 cabinets, you probably don't need 10 stools or even have room for it. And for that reason, I do think it ought to be sold standalone. So all that said, I do like the premise of varying the product tiers. We know Arcade1up's moving that direction, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Give us options. Let us pay a little less and get less, pay more and get more. But I think they whiffed on this current iteration, this current batch of upgraded cabinets. The NBA Jam, the Frogger, they come with stools, they come with light up decks, which most people don't seem to like now that they're out in the wild. So what should we be getting for $500? Well, I think Arcade1up ought to look to their own history. They did Marvel Limited Edition for $400, and with that cabinet, we got an awesome package, including all Sanwa controls. So my view is give us real controls, Sanwa, Hap, whatever. If you want to stick to the brand the cabinet was originally made for, then that's awesome. But give us name brand stuff, not the clone products. Now, I know the clones have gotten better.
The shroud of the dark side has fallen. Begun. The Clone War has.
And they're probably going to continue to get better, but just give us the real thing. A lot of people will say, well, I'm going to upgrade my controls when I get the cabinet anyway. Well, then guess what? You just paid for that joystick and button set twice. You paid for the clone set that came with your cabinet, and maybe you even bought the top of the line cabinet, but then you have to go and swap that out with higher quality controls. Why not just get the higher quality controls in the first place? I would also argue that for these upgraded packages, you want to do more. Give us upgraded speakers. I think that the speakers we get are very, very cheap. Couple dollars a piece at wholesale, probably double that and pay $5 to $10 instead of $2 to $4 and really give us something more substantial. I'm not talking about inline amplifiers or anything like that. That'd be quite expensive. Simply saying give us a little better controls, a little better speakers, and call that the upgraded version. The light up deck I think is neither here nor there. It might impress a Walmart shopper that walks by, but if you're gonna do it the right way and engineer that deck so that it diffuses the light and it actually looks like a nice glowing panel like what's advertised. That's my perspective in a nutshell. I don't blame Arcade1up at all for the rosters. It is what it is. I think they're out hustling, trying to get as many of those players as they can. Good for them. I do blame them for the light deck, and I think that for $500 we really ought to be getting a little better quality from what I've seen. But I'm still waiting on my review cabinet, so once I get that in, or not review cabinet, sorry, the one I'm actually bought. I'm waiting on my purchased cabinet. Once I get that in, I will review it, and I'll let you know what I think. Tell me in the comments what you think. Does the light up deck look good as it is? Is that a good package for 500 bucks, or would you want something different? Or are you just into the lower cost ones anyway? Because $500, I mean, that's a lot of money for one game. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoy the video, I hope I've earned it. Take a second and hit the subscribe button. Most of you who watch the videos are not subscribed, and if you do want to subscribe, it's just an easier way to stay on top with when we do new videos or when we do new live streams. But thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Dripping lights paint the sky.